So he identified three levels, and these three levels are identified with different language. It's all the same meaning. That is, I'll just list the groupings. Oir Makiv, Oir Pnimi, number 2. Number 3, Ashpa Metzad HaKelim, which is called Shefa, general, in contrast to Oir. It's one grouping. Parallel to the way the Nefesh animates the body, there's 3 levels. There's Oir, there's Chayes, and there's Koyach. In general, the difference between the first 2 and the third level is, the first level is pure Oir, the Moir, unrestrained. The parallel in the Nefesh is the fact that the person is alive and no part of the body is more alive than any other part. It's all fundamentally human and life. Chayes, as he speaks it here, which corresponds to Oir Pnimi, means that the life force, Tzimtzum, the Oir is contracted, but still not fused with the Keli. And Koyach is the Oir that's mislabish in the Keli. Another parallel we said is Etzem, Klal, and Prat. And we gave several illustrations, including one that may be useful. We'll give the 2 L'Shalom again. One marshal is the Chassid, completely oblivious to his surroundings and having Ashba, that's Oir Makiv. The second matziv is because he's cognizant of his surroundings, so therefore he's mitzamtzim himself to some degree. We gave the example of the Chassid Shliach, who appears to daven with a minyan so as not to create an impression that would be misunderstood. And the third matziv of the Chassid is that he's mashpia mamish, fabrein, sits with people, gets involved in their life. That's mitzad HaKelim, that's called Shefa. That's where he gives a shtick of himself. As we'll see, it's Dafkin, the third Eifem, that the deepest connection, of course, is forged. We give another example of a teacher in the classroom, teaching a subject matter. 3 Eifanim in teaching the subject matter. He's teaching a Mishnah. So the first stage is, he says the Mishnah. He reads the Mishnah as the Mishnah is. The kids speak Hebrew, right? So, away from Akifi, they're getting something. Then he rearticulates the Mishnah according to the level of the class. And thirdly, he sits with each Talmud and is mislavish in his world, with his particular questions, etc. Now, he says now, let's start again. So the difference between the aforementioned 3 Eifanim, which again correspond to Etzem, Klal, and Prat. Everything has an Etzem, everything has a general identity, and everything has the details. Everything. The illustration we gave was a person. There's Be'etzem, a human being. And then there's a personality type, that's the klal. And then there's the pratim of how he manifests. We spoke about an apple. Same thing, relatively speaking. I always quote the apple because when we learned this, we were actually kids, but young teens. In Yonash Ateres Achsidus, the Yossi Chitrik, who runs the seminary in Tzvas, the Shliach Abachim, together on Leise and Yankaraitis.
In Melbourne.
Huh?
In Melbourne.
In Melbourne, yes. We learned, we were teens already. In Yonash Ateres Achsidus, the Moshe they gave of Etzem was the apple, stomach from the beer. Kaponim. So the apple to everything. There's the Etzem apple. There's the klal kind of apple, and there's the protein, its taste, color, etc. So the chiluk between these 3 Eifanim, Moledak B'Mashpia. Now, this all ties into what does he want to explain here? This is all to explain the paradox that Chesed Atzilus, which is called Chesed Zutta, is deeper than Rav Chesed Chesed Da'arich. And that B'pnimi is its Chesed Yishmor. And that's what the Alter Rebbe is negating absolutely in the letter after h'tשכ. The result explained. So you recall that in this Eifen of Hashpah, these three Eifanim, so Zen, then the Vezel Echos. So you remember the Mishnah says, there's a machlekes between the Tanna Kamma and the next time they are unauthored, unnamed. So the Tanna Kamma says that Sheli, Sheli, V'Shalach, V'Shalach. It's mine is mine, and yours is yours. That's Midas Beininus. If what's mine is mine and what's yours is mine, that's already Vash. All agree that the tzaddik is what's mine is mine, is what's yours is yours. The question is this middle ground. Live and let live. So the first Tana says it's Midas Beininus, and the second one says it's Midas Doi. Intolerable, unacceptable. So the Rebbe's Masbi, what's the first Tana saying? That as long as that, what does it mean? Sheli v'shalach shalach means zen nen v'zel echos. He's being mashpia. He's only ready to be mashpia if he's not losing. When it's zen nen v'zel echos, then maski. When it's zen nen v'zel echos, the first says the makabel, and the second says the mashpia is lacking. So there, he doesn't want. That's what it means. That's tzaddik. That's not midas beininus. So this is what we're talking about here, because the first Eifen Avada is that way. The first Eifen of Hashpah, when there's no investor at all, and the Moyer is Bisgalus, the Chassid is just being himself, the teacher is just saying the Mishnah. We're discussing the apple at an atmisdika level. There's loy chaser, we're not compromising it in any way. There's no compromise here in our discussion. There's no compromise of it, of the person in the hashpah. The oil radiates, people benefit, and he lacks nothing. There's no change. Even in the second oifen, there's, relatively speaking, as we said, the chassid is tailoring himself to the environment, although he's not engaging anybody. Or the mashal, the teacher is now re-articulating the Mishnah on the level of the class. So there's a tzimtzum in dashpah. So there's a little bit of chassid here, because he's not saying the Mishnah as he would in his own world. The chassids are behaving purely as he would if he didn't have to take into account consideration his environment. So there's an element of chassid. But the real chassid is when he gets down to the world and gives up his time and keiches for the Talmud, for the mushpah. That's the emes, the zen, then the zeh chassid. It says the second Tana, that's the only Eifen Hashpah at the end that is acceptable. Otherwise, it's midas doi. If you're going to be mashpia, it's not going to detract from you, it's midas doi. As we mentioned, that the Maimon doesn't even say, because is not even on the table, is to mashpia in the Eifen that you use the mushpah for one's own agenda, one's own agenda for COVID, etc. So that's zen nena, that's the mashpia's nena, zeh chassid, the makabel is chassid. The Mishnah doesn't even contain such an abuse. Follow that?
And that makes it a midas dime.
That's even worse than Sdoim. It's not on the table. That's worse than Sdoim.
Mashpia is using out the
Makabel. It's not on the table. Mishnah doesn't even talk about it.
I never
Oh,
heard
so there's something worse than Sdoim.
Yeah. There's something worse than Sdoim, yeah. Sdoim gets a mention in the Mishnah. There's an opinion even that what you consider Sdoim is not Sdoim. But what I'm talking about now, that's worse than this.
The opposite of Zenena.
The other way, you're using the other guy.
Zenena is a chosr, the other way around.
He doesn't realize he's being abused here. It's even worse.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, sometimes it's okay. Maybe he gives it tzedakah. He gives it tzedakah in order to get covered. The recipient is happy to receive
But
it.
that makes him chosr. Give stuff.
There's a
Because he
certain,
gave something.
you're right, there's certain chassid, but sometimes in business, there's things there to invest to
Right.
get it.
Right.
If he gets bigger covered, it's worth it for him. Sometimes he doesn't consider it chassid. But kaponim, that's not on the table. So now, v'hinei achiluk ben gimel b'chinas hanal. So the difference between the three that we said before, oir chayus and koyach, or oir makif, oir pnimi, hashpah, mitzad hakelim, investor in the world of the kelim. So the difference is not only mitzad mashpia. In brackets, he says what we just said now. Shedei hashpah shem mitzad hakelim arichos. So when you get down into the world of the Mekabel, obviously the mashpia is taken from his time and his world, and he lacks as a result his own personal advancement and so on. Mashenkim b'er pnimi, mekolshkim b'er makif einachos. Even b'er pnimi, which you get again that the teacher is saying the Mishnah in a way that's appropriate for the class, it's still not chassid, because you're not investing in it. It's not taking a piece out of it. It's still abstract. It's his world. It's a tzimtzum in the oir, but it's still in the world of the oir. It's not the world of the kelim. In the kolshkim, but makif, where he just says the Mishnah Stam or the chassid is just being a chassid for sure in a chassid. So the difference is not only mitzad mashpil, agam b'makabel. The difference, of course, is how the makabel is received, hashpah, whether it's a makif, a pnimi, or it's mitzad his kelim. Shekachol shemashpia chassid yoser, the more the mashpia lacks, gives up of his time in koiches, as in then a makabel yoser, so the makabel gains more. Heinrich spells it out, kisham sholchish mitzad makif. So he's just doing his thing, he's not engaging at all this environment. Since there's no lack for the mashpia, he got makes a makabel the makabel is not internally affected. He's inspired by the environment, but not internally changed. And even though we said before, I'm not going to address this now in detail, but we learned it first. Wait a minute. Every giloy means taking into account the kelim. So it does affect the makabel. So there's no such thing as a giloy with the makabel is irrelevant. Cannot be. The definition of giloy is that there is a kelim, there is a makabel. There is the space in which the giloy takes place. So but what are we saying now that he's not affected? He's part of the equation. Even though elsewhere it's explained, where was it here? That all giloy is mitzad the keli, so we're kind of describing it's unilateral and it's the environment is not part of the equation. It's not so that every giloy is qualified and affected by the environment. Nonetheless, so you're not getting into the world of the keli. What's the example? That's what the example we gave. Like he stands in the 4 cubits of the tzaddik of the chassid, and he watches b'shar shemispala. The Rebbe is not speaking here so much as I'm saying it about watching and seeing. He's referring to another inyan, and that's the dafke tzaddik, not just an ordinary person. When the tzaddik davens to be under this, as I state in Kabbalah, to be under the same roof, the same market, the same oil, and you don't see him, you're not watching him, you're physically under the same oil. So there's the hashpah, and it lifts everybody. That's what it means here. There's even more. It's not like you're even watching him. Just being under the same roof. This is Dafke Tzaddik's tefillah. I don't know if that's why, but that's the union of just being by mincha, mayim, etc. It's a see, not to see. They didn't want actually till you should not want. during davening. But to be under the same makiv elevates all of the tefillas, and it's inspirational for Gashmis, but it has ashpah. And if I remember correctly, in the famous letter, it's called the long brief, the long letter that the Rebbe wrote to the Mushka, which is a whole book, several books. It's translated now. It's well worth the read. To put it mildly, we went through it over Shalom this year years ago. We went through it every week. We read a piece, and there with the Mordechai Tzaddik and the Baal Shem Tov, it's mentioned there this Indian.
So the letter.
In that letter, there's a part there, if I'm not mistaken, of Mordechai appreciating being davening in the same Daladams under the same market as Hashem. Somebody with someone. Akaponit's mentioned. That's when I was first introduced to the idea. And then I remember Fabeng in Melbourne, one Bacher Shnech was needing the other a little bit. He's not there for every mincha, every ma'ariv. Some of the elder chassidim in 770, they knew this. They never missed a mincha ma'ariv. Some of the elder. The Rebbe didn't daven shachas with me. Only Kriyas HaTorah came to hear in all the earlier years. But mincha ma'ariv he did, and they never missed.
From the beginning, in the early days also.
Yeah, I think so. One this year, but so they never missed. Gordon, others. Moliovavitch. So I'm saying here that this, what he says here, that is not even not just seeing, just being under the same makiv. So mind you, goes without saying, the davening in 770, same, it's the same, and even more.
They've said that about Friedrich.
Yeah, we said it that right about the Friedrich. Davening in 770, stand by the oil, sicher also. It's a whole different Indian, the oil. So there, the tefillah shel tzaddik peil eles olav. So the davening of the tzaddik affects him. Shadei nase etzle shinoi. That the change is such a gam hu mispalel beifenacher. He davens differently. Aval, nonetheless, after peken arizerak b'pnimis maki. Loi beifin shenen b'pnimis, but not that he has ano b'pnimis. It comes in with Rosh Chanukah, and this is the reason it's brought down to my bottom of Chanukah. So we must become Shachal, the Shmein Nesechi Odom, right? The Nevuah there in Micha, that if Syria will attack, so we will meet them with 8 princes of men and 7 shepherds. Actually, the order there is the Shiva Royim and the Shmein Nesechi Odom. The Navi doesn't say who they are. The Gemara in Sukkot identifies who they are, which you mentioned. And as I told you, the Peladik Rashi, that Rashi says, I don't know where the Gemara gets this from. It seems like it's just arbitrary. The Min Va'alman. Al-Koponim Chassidus is Mevayet. That the Shmein in the Sichi Odom, Shmein is infinite, that's connected to Chanukah and Shmini Atzeres. That is what Shemen Mishak in this market. So such Ashpot, so we're talking about Sidlogim. So just such ashpa is not enough. It has to be the 7 shepherds, and the aim of a shepherd is that he's mashpia, gives food literally, he nourishes. So it has to be dashpa, and shiva is dafke gvul, teva, dashpa makif, shmoyin has to be nimshach in the shiva in ashpa pnimis. As explained there in those maimarim at length. Shin hamshach pnimi, but pnimis that so there has to be dafke pnimis. I know in more detail now. Even though the Shiva Royim attack shepherds, David and Yishai and Moishe Rabbeinu, they were shepherds. Even though Shagam b'chinas makif yeshna ervigiloi, so we're up to now. And even though the makif is a tremendous ervigiloi, remember again, I told you that the mind that you said before, but Dekin talks about this, Now the mind of the Badekin and the various examples of a Makiv Dika, which is very lofty, Tainug, 2 levels of Tainug, Tainug HaPosher, Tainug HaMurkev, but then it doesn't come to the Ashpa Pnimis Mitzad HaSeichel, the Ashpa Pnimis of Chasam Makabel. That's the point he's going to now. It's all Hachon. So even though that the Makiv is Yeshna Oiv Gil Shalcheni, Gam B'chinas Oides the Torah, and that's why the Oides the Torah Shalamayim is Yashus, which are beyond being absorbed and by the Keli, Kedugmas HaMakifim, which is what a Makif is, like Nikroim B'Shem Oides. They're called Oides. Oides means Gilim, means have an effect. They illuminate. Shini Shal Oiv V'Gilu. So it's Meidike Giloyim, Meidike Makifim, like it is the Toyo, but at the end of the day, Mikol Mokim, Ein Ze Inyan Shalano, the Pnimius. It's not going to bring about the desired internal relationship, internal change, to quote contemporary language, taking ownership. Inyan Hano, the Pnimius, so when does the Makabal have a Pnimius Dike Hano? Pnimius means it becomes part of him, it affects his whole, everything about him, his attitude, his behavior. It's when the Amshocha is in a way of Pnimi, when the Mashpia gets into the world of the Makabel and gives a piece of himself. He says in more detail, even in the Pnimi, which we gave the example of, he's teaching the lesson that's tailored to the class, but he's not getting into the world of individual Talmud or the nefesh. That's the oil and nefesh is nitzamtza, to be nislabish in the various limbs and organs of the body. So there is already a tzimtzum, but nonetheless, and so that's already getting tailored to much more so the Makabel. It's a whole different lesson, but nonetheless, it's incomparable to the Hano that the Talmud will have mitzad this kelu. Since when it comes to mitzad kelim, so the mashpia lacks more. He's giving over his time and his koyach. It's not just time and koyach; it's effort for the mashpia to even relate to the Makabel. It's not his world. Not his world. He has to divest himself of his own world to get into the world of the Makabel. It's mamash chassid. So then, lochin then and Makabel yoysa there, the Makabel gets much more. Look at my hefesh. Now comes the bottom line. Hefesh bein hashpos haseichel hashpos hatip. The difference between both come from the moyach. Seichel comes from the moyach and the tipah. Talking about the tipah gashmi, the seed from which a child is born. So it says in Chassidus, Kabbalah, there's Beri Beis and Tanya, the Begashmius, friends. Begashmius, I can't tell you exactly how it works, I'm not a scientist. Some of this has butter, but it comes from the Etzem Moyach. It travels via the spine. That's what it says. And it emerges as a tipah through Midas HaYesoid and is received by the Makabel. So the Seichel is Oir. Person's about Seichel. And so he's wired that way. That's the moyer of a person. As a person's an intellectual, a thinker. So he produces ideas and he thinks. The tipah, and that's natural. I mean, the person is always thinking. Hopefully good things. But the tipah does not manifest always. It comes from ganz avodah. But the tipah comes from, it's a piece of, and it comes from the etzem moichin no'av. It's emes hashpah. It's hashpah, poshet a shtik, a piece of him. Shab hashpah sheb haseichel. So when he gives over an idea, a person shares what he's thinking, what he understands very deeply. Ikra eino isha shel haseichel. So the main thing is not the letters. Sorry, I didn't read that right. El haseichel. The main thing is not the words, but the seichel. What's the seichel? Sh'or pnimi. This is a revelation, an pnimi of the person. He's articulating an idea. He's expressing it. But hearing someone else's idea, the recipient doesn't have the ultimate handa that he takes home and takes ownership, becomes part of him. You had a beautiful idea. That's not going to create a new idea within me. Following? What happens to the makabel, the child, which is the makabel and or the isha? In giving over the tip, giving shat tip, gashmi is, so the tip on the one hand is very low. It's gashmi, it's shachim, it's kelim. That's mamish, the keli of the makabel, not an abstract idea in the world of ideas. But your mamish tailored to the physical kelim of the makabel. In the bezeh dafke nimshacha etzem. In this hashpaz, the etzem and the child is born, the doimaloi, and more than that, the child, yafa keicha ben, the child can even have greater talent than the father. Because in that etzem are keichas that even the father never articulated. But it's their potential. That's the deal that yafa keicha ben, mikeicha. But because why? Because in that tipa comes the etzem that there can be in yonim that were never expressed in the oir, in the makif, and that's not pnimi by the father. And how does it come out? Dafke in ashpa gashmis, which means he gives himself a piece of himself. He calls him movements and all of the above. It's understood. The gashmis, it says in Shulchan Aruch that the tippa. Shulchan Aruch cautions a person shouldn't engage too much, like a rooster, the expression, because the Rambam makes it lalach. Shulchan Aruch, it drains a person. It's an interesting statement that most diseases come because of too much, whatever that means. Why? Because it draws in the etzem. Once it drains the person at a very essential level. Mamish is giving a shtick of himself, which is why it's either the greatest thing or the most terrible thing. So there, Shashpa miskabelas etzem b'pnimius yosef, because in movement shekol shemashpia chasei yosef. So what's the conclusion? The more the mashpia lacks, then the makabel yosef, the makabel gets more. Bishnein yonibazeh, the two aspects to this are aleph, number one. Shashpa miskabelas etzem b'pnimius yosef. The recipient gets it in a more pnimistic way, becomes part of him. The case of the tip of her, mamish, becomes part of her. And the mashpia is giving from a deeper part of him. So it goes deeper from the mashpia and enters much deeper in the makabel. The very essence of the mashpia is given over here. Can move in the mashal tipa as we understand in the mashal the tip. Now let's all apply this lamayim. Chesed Givaldik, Rav Chesed, and Chesed is all Chesed Atzilus, which is Oiris in Kalim and Mitzad Kalim, and it's called Zoh. Zoh means Zeir, Anpin, very small. And he said before, it doesn't mean it's small because it's not bligvul, it's bligvul, and even it's bligvul in a prat, it's a Kali to the bligvul amiti. As we explained, and we addressed that right some shiurim ago. Why is it called Zut? Because it's mitzad habitl. He's going to explain what that means. And I'll say it in one word so that you will understand it. Mitzad habitl means that ashpa is mitzad the recipient. That's the bitl. The mashpia is, there's one agenda here. that the makabel should get and gain and grow. That's the bittul of the mashpia. As opposed to Rav Chesed. Rav Chesed is pointing to a great quality of the mashpia, Rav Chesed. In other words, it's very subtle here, and we'll say it now. Tomorrow we'll see it in the Maimed, interesting Oisius in the Maimed. It's interesting. The language of Chassidus, but it's easy to get totally miss the point. Definitely because of the language. And that is, the Eibishter first expresses Rav Chesed. What's Rav Chesed? Rav Chesed is, wow, the Eibishter expresses infinite Chesed. It's a statement about him. A statement about his shleimus. A statement about his grandeur. A statement about his... What's Chesed Atzilus? Chesed Atzilus starts the following. I think I need Chesed. It's because of you. It's all for you. Because I want a relationship, a peace with you. That's the whole desire. And here's where the Etzem lies. That Nisave, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Eibishter, and these words are in the mind, but that's what he's saying. That Eibishter craves relationship with us in a pnimistic way, or here's where Atzmos is expressed. This is where the Nisave is. Rav Chesed is no Nisave. It's just, the Eibishter deliberately, again, because he wanted to do it with Kotointi, so it has to be an alien. There's no talk from that an alien. So what's the alien? The alien is the bligvul, midas of toihu, of adich, and that's gewaldig, you know. If you observe that, what a God! Wow, it's quite the Eibishter here. Bligvul chesed, bligvul midas, oires bligvul. And he wants that sense. Where do we fit into the picture? Nowhere. There's no room. There's no room even there for gvul, for the puny, tiny little human being. All there is just the grandeur of Elikus. Then comes the big chiddush, so the wissen sein, he doesn't need the alien. The whole alien is because he wants a tachten. The tachten is me and you, and a relationship. And it all starts with Atzilus, Neshamas Atzilus, Oiris and Kelim, Mashpa, Mamish till Gashmius, like the Moshe of the Tipper, Lamata, and that's what I want. And that's where my essence lies. And my essence is not laid bare in the Oiris Makifim Lamayim. Because at the end of the day, is Makiv Dike, Bligvul Oir, Lagaba Atzmus, it's all. Nothing. But that is not expressed in those giluim. Those giluim, it's all the giluim, the Oir itself. Okay, so that's the general idea. So Be'ez Hashem, we'll see it in the Oisis of the mind. That's the mile of Chesed Zutter, and that's the mile of Avram's Chesed. And Yishmael, who says, Yishmael is well. Yishmael is the expression of Toyu, of Rav Chesed, Adir. See detail, but that's not where the Kavanah Pnimius lies. And therefore, the Nisava, and therefore, where the Eibush is invested in Mitzvah Atzmos. Okay, that's the general idea. It's the whole idea of every mind. The beauty is we should understand it and the nuance and the words, the doisis of the mind. Why? Because the more we understand it with nuance, the more we take it to Pnimius. The more language, the more nuance, the more you internalize. Today's